I was folding laundry when my husband sold my life for land. That is the truth I learned too late, on a quiet afternoon when the sun was warm, the house smelled of soap, and I still believed 20 years of marriage meant something. My name is Sarah Miller, and I am a grandmother. For 2 decades, I cooked, cleaned, prayed, forgave, and stayed. I believed love was patience. I believed loyalty was silent. I believed my husband, Mark Miller, was just bad with money, not bad with his soul. I was wrong. Very wrong. Mark came home that evening smiling too much. "Sarah," he said, kissing my forehead, "let's take a drive tomorrow. Just you and me." That should have been my first warning. Mark never wanted to go anywhere with me. I laughed. "Since when do you plan surprises?" He shrugged. "People change." I smiled back, but something cold slid down my spine. That night, I couldn't sleep. Mark lay beside me, breathing calmly, one arm across my chest like always. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the ticking clock, thinking of my late parents, of the farmland they left me, of how Mark's eyes always followed that land on paper more than they ever followed me. The next morning, I wore my old blue dress. The one Mark once said made me look young. We drove out of town. Too far. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Just trust me," Mark said, tapping the steering wheel. The road turned rough. Trees grew thicker. My phone lost signal. "Mark," I said slowly, "this isn't funny." He didn't answer. Then the car stopped. 3 men stepped out from behind the trees. My heart slammed so hard I tasted blood. One of them knocked on the window. "Ma'am," he said politely, "please come with us." I turned to Mark. "What is this?" He didn't look at me. "Mark?" My voice broke. His hands shook as he unlocked the door. "I'm sorry, Sarah," he whispered. That was the moment my marriage ended. They dragged me out. I screamed. I begged. I called his name until my throat burned. Mark stood there. Watching. Not fighting. Not running. Just watching. The men pushed me into a van. The door slammed. Darkness swallowed me. As the engine started, I saw Mark through a crack in the door. He wiped his face. I thought it was tears. I later learned it was relief. They kept me in a small room with 1 chair and 1 light bulb. No windows. No clock. "How much is the land worth?" one man asked. I laughed through fear. "You kidnapped the wrong woman." He smiled. "Your husband says otherwise." That sentence stabbed deeper than any knife. Hours passed. Or days. I don't know. Then my phone rang. Mark's name. I answered with shaking hands. "You did this," I said. "Sarah," he said softly, "just sign the papers. Once the land is transferred, they'll let you go. So my life is worth property now? Don't make this hard." I screamed. I cried. I reminded him of our children. Our grandchildren. Our vows. He sighed. "I'm tired of being poor." The call ended. That night, something inside me hardened. I stopped crying. I started thinking. What Mark didn't know was that the land wasn't as simple as he thought. My father had been smart. Smarter than all of us. The property was tied to accounts, trusts, and conditions Mark never bothered to understand. I smiled in the dark. Let him have the land. 3 days later, they pushed papers in front of me. "Sign," the man said. I did. They dropped me on the roadside at dawn. No apology. No goodbye. I walked home barefoot. When I opened my front door, Mark was waiting. He ran to me. "You're safe." I looked at him like a stranger. Where's the money? He asked, trying to hide his excitement. I sat down slowly. It's done, I said. He smiled wide. That smile lasted exactly 1 day. Because by morning, every account connected to that land was empty. Zero. Nothing. Gone. Mark stared at his phone, refreshing the screen again and again. This has to be a mistake, he said. I sipped my tea. Oh, it's not. He turned to me, panic rising. Sarah, what did you do? I leaned back, calm for the first time in years. You sold me, I said softly. Now let's see what you bought. And just then, someone knocked on the door. Not softly. Not kindly. Mark froze. I smiled. The knocking grew louder. Bang. 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 Mark's face drained of color. His phone slipped from his hand and hit the floor. Did you call the police? He whispered. I didn't answer. The door shook again. Open up, a man shouted. Mr. Mark Miller, we know you're inside. Mark grabbed my arm. Sarah, please. Whatever this is, fix it. I pulled my arm away. Fix it? Like you fixed me? He flinched. The door burst open. 2 men in dark jackets stepped in, followed by a woman holding a folder. She looked calm, professional, and very serious. Mark Miller, the woman asked. Yes, he croaked. I'm Linda Carter, from the bank's Fraud and Asset Recovery Unit. Fraud. That word hit him harder than a punch. There's been a complete freeze on all accounts connected to the Miller name, she said. Personal, business, and inherited. That's impossible, Mark shouted. I just received. She raised a hand. Sir, according to our records, the land you claimed was transferred illegally. Mark turned slowly toward me. What did you do? He asked again, louder this time. I stood up. I followed my father's rules, I said. Linda looked at me and nodded. Your father placed a legal condition on the property. If any transfer happened under coercion or threat to your life, ownership would revert to a protected trust. Mark blinked. Coercion? I smiled sadly. Kidnapping counts. Linda continued, the trust automatically drained all connected accounts to protect the asset. Mark shouted. Drained them where? She closed the folder. Into a locked holding account. His voice shook. So, how much do I have left? Linda looked at her tablet. 0. The silence that followed was loud. Mark collapsed into the chair. Sarah, please. I looked at the man I married at 22. The man who once held my hand at the hospital when our first child was born. The same man who watched strangers drag me away. I begged you, I said quietly. You didn't listen. Linda turned toward the door. We'll be in touch, Mrs. Miller. I stopped her. Not Mrs. Miller. She paused. Pardon? Just Sarah. She nodded and left. The door closed. Mark sobbed. I didn't comfort him. That night, he slept on the couch. Or maybe he didn't sleep at all. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling again, but this time I wasn't afraid. I was angry. The next morning, my daughter Rachel called. Mom, she said, her voice shaking, Dad is telling everyone you ruined him. I laughed. A dry, sharp laugh that surprised even me. Did he tell you why? There was a pause. He said you were greedy. Did he tell you he sold me? Silence. Then, what? I told her everything. She cried. Then she screamed. Then she said something that broke my heart and healed it at the same time. Mom, come stay with us. I packed my bags. Mark stood in the doorway. You can't leave. Watch me. As I reached the door, he dropped to his knees. I made a mistake. I looked down at him. You made a choice. I left. At Rachel's house, my grandchildren hugged me like they never wanted to let go. I slept peacefully for the first time in years. 2 days later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Mrs. Miller, a man said calmly, this is Officer James Walker. My chest tightened. Your name came up in an investigation involving a kidnapping ring. My hands shook. I was released. Yes, he said. But your husband's name was found on a payment list. The room spun. He paid them? Yes, Officer Walker said. But there's more. I swallowed hard. What more? The men who took you are missing. The line went quiet. What do you mean missing? I asked. No trace, he said. And someone withdrew the ransom money before the accounts were frozen. I sat down slowly. Who? I whispered. There was a pause. Then he said, the withdrawal was made under your husband's name. My stomach dropped. Officer, I said carefully, Mark doesn't have that kind of courage. Another pause. Then, the officer said, someone helped him. That night, I couldn't sleep again. But this time, it wasn't fear. It was the feeling that something darker was coming. Because Mark wasn't just broke. He was desperate. And desperate people do terrible things. The next morning, I woke up with a strange feeling in my chest. Not fear. Not anger. It felt like a warning. Rachel was already in the kitchen when I came down. She handed me a cup of coffee without saying a word. You didn't sleep, she said. Neither did you. She hesitated. Dad called again. I sighed. What does he want now? He says he's being followed. I almost laughed. Almost. Mom, Rachel said quietly, I know what he did was unforgivable. But I'm scared. So am I admitted. But not of him. That afternoon, my phone buzzed again. Mark. I let it ring. Then it rang again. And again. Finally, I answered. Sarah, he said, breathing hard, you need to come home. I don't have a home with you. They know, he whispered. Who knows? The men. Or whoever sent them. Someone is watching me. I leaned back in my chair. Good. He choked. I'm serious. So was I when they took me. There was a knock at Rachel's door. Rachel froze. I raised a hand. Stay here. I walked slowly to the door and looked through the peephole. Mark stood outside. He looked terrible. His hair was messy. His eyes were red. His clothes smelled like sweat and fear. I opened the door just enough to speak. You shouldn't be here. They took everything, he said, stepping closer. The house is being reviewed. My cards don't work. Someone emptied my office. I stared at him. Welcome to nothing. He grabbed my sleeve. Sarah, listen to me. I didn't just sell you. My heart skipped. What do you mean? I lied to them, he whispered. I told them the land was already in my name. My blood ran cold. They believed me, he said. But now they know I tricked them. And you think that's my problem? They said if I don't fix it, he said, voice cracking, they'll come for you again. Rachel stepped behind me. Get away from my mother. Mark looked at his daughter like he didn't recognize her. I never wanted this, he said. I finally snapped. You wanted money, I said sharply. You wanted power. You wanted an easy life built on my pain. He fell silent. Then he said something that made my knees weak. They're not the only ones, he whispered. What does that mean? The bank people, he said. The trust. Someone is using it. I narrowed my eyes. Using it how? They contacted me, he said. Offered a deal. Rachel gasped. A deal? They said if I sign everything over, Mark continued, they'll make the kidnappers disappear. I laughed. A bitter laugh. They already disappeared. His face twisted. No. They were moved. Moved where? I don't know, he said. But I know one thing. What? They don't lose money. A car slowed down outside. We all turned. It stopped in front of the house. Black. Shiny. Expensive. The windows were tinted. My phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. Mrs. Miller, you should not have come back into the picture. My hands trembled. Another message followed. You signed the papers. Now stay quiet. The car door opened. A man stepped out. Tall. Calm. Smiling. He walked toward the house like he owned the street. Mark backed away. Rachel whispered, Mom, who is that? I swallowed hard. I don't know, I said. But deep down, I knew one thing. Selling me was only the beginning. And whatever Mark had dragged into our lives was far more dangerous than kidnappers with ropes and vans. Because this time, the threat wore a suit. And he knew my name. The man in the suit rang the doorbell. Polite. Calm. Like he was visiting old friends. Mark backed away so fast he nearly tripped over the welcome mat. I didn't tell him where you were, he whispered. I didn't believe him. I opened the door. The man smiled wider. Mrs. Sarah Miller, he said smoothly. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. His voice was soft, but it carried power. The kind that didn't need to shout. Who are you? I asked. He adjusted his cufflinks. My name is Thomas Reed. I represent people who dislike complications. Rachel stepped forward. You need to leave. Thomas glanced at her, then back at me. Your daughter is very brave. That made my stomach twist. I don't remember inviting you, I said. Thomas chuckled lightly. Invitation is a luxury. Timing is more important. He looked past me and saw Mark hiding in the corner. Oh, Thomas said warmly, there you are. Mark shook. You said she wouldn't be involved anymore. Thomas sighed. Plans change. I crossed my arms. If you're here about the land, you're too late. On the contrary, Thomas said. You are right on time. He stepped inside without permission. Rachel grabbed her phone. I'm calling the police. Thomas didn't stop her. Please do. They already know my name. That scared me more than any threat. He sat on the couch like he belonged there. Your father was a careful man, he said to me. That trust was impressive. I didn't answer. Unfortunately, he continued, it's now attracting attention. Mark burst out, you promised me protection. Thomas looked at him calmly. And you promised competence. Mark's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Thomas turned back to me. Mrs. Miller, the kidnapping was messy. Unnecessary. I felt heat rise in my chest. Unnecessary? Yes, he said. We could have done this cleanly. But your husband chose a cheaper route. I looked at Mark. He couldn't look at me. So what do you want now? I asked. Thomas smiled again. Peace. I laughed. You broke into my life. That's not peace. Peace, he said patiently, comes after cooperation. Rachel shouted, Mom, don't listen to him. Thomas nodded. Family loyalty. Admirable. He pulled out a thin folder and placed it on the table. Inside are documents that dissolve the trust, legally. My heart skipped. That's impossible. Nothing is impossible, he said, with the right signatures. And if I refuse? Thomas leaned back. Then the people who once took you, may remember you. The room went silent. Mark dropped to his knees again. I'll do anything, he begged. Just leave them alone. Thomas didn't even look at him. Your value is exhausted, he said coldly. That sentence broke something in Mark. He started crying, loud and ugly. Thomas stood. I'll give you time, he said to me. Think carefully. You survived once. He paused at the door and turned back. Oh, and Mrs. Miller? Yes? Your grandchildren are adorable. Rachel screamed. Get out. Thomas smiled and left. The door closed. The house felt smaller. The air felt heavy. Rachel grabbed my hands. Mom, we need to run. No, I said slowly. Mark looked up at me, eyes swollen. Sarah, please. I pulled my hands away from both of them. I ran my whole marriage, I said quietly. I'm done. My phone buzzed. A message. You have 72 hours. I stared at the screen. They thought I was weak. They thought I would bend. They forgot one thing. I already survived being sold. And I had nothing left to lose. The 72 hours passed slower than my entire marriage. I didn't run. I didn't hide. I planned. While Mark cried and begged, I made phone calls. Old numbers. Quiet numbers. The kind my father once told me never to forget. On the third night, I asked Mark one last question. Did you ever love me? He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. That was my answer. At exactly midnight, my phone rang. Thomas Reed. Mrs. Miller, he said calmly, have you made a decision? Yes, I replied. There was a pause. Good. I'm not signing anything, I continued. But you should check the news. Another pause. Longer this time. I heard typing. Then his voice changed. Just a little. What did you do? My father didn't just build a trust, I said softly. He built a trap. Sirens wailed in the distance. Not near my house. Near his. You see, I continued, the moment you tried to force that trust open, every illegal move around it was recorded. You're bluffing, Thomas snapped. I'm a grandmother, I said. We don't bluff. We wait. The line went dead. An hour later, the news broke. A financial crime network exposed. Fake banks. Fake deals. Real arrests. Thomas Reed's face filled the screen. Mark watched from the couch, shaking. They're taking everything, he whispered. I nodded. That's how Zero feels. By morning, the house was quiet. Mark packed a small bag. I have nowhere to go, he said. I opened the door. You made sure of that. He paused. Do you hate me? I thought about it. No, I said. I survived you. He left. I closed the door. The sun rose. For the first time in 20 years, my life was mine. And somewhere out there, men who thought they owned me were learning a hard lesson. Never underestimate a woman who has already lost everything. Especially a grandmother who remembers every promise ever broken. Thanks for watching. Kindly drop your comment about this story. And please subscribe to this channel for more stories.